What's up, carnivores? Zach here with American Smoke, and today we're going to go over 7 mistakes to avoid as a new pellet grill owner or an experienced pellet grill owner that maybe you haven't made these mistakes yet, so you haven't learned the lesson. And today we're going to help you learn the lesson the easy way instead of the hard way, which is how I've had to learn 8 out of these 7 lessons. So y'all stick around. We're gonna go ahead and get into the first lesson, and then towards the end of the video, if you're still around, I'm gonna share with you a bonus lesson that I have had to learn the hard way, and it definitely is something that you need to know about because it's gonna save your butt on one of your cooks. I can promise you that. Let's get into lesson number 1, and that is the water pan. Don't get lazy on your water pan. Don't think that what's water? I'm trying to cook a brisket. I'm not trying to smoke no water. Let me tell you something. Water creates humidity inside your pit. And that humidity bonds to the surface of the meat, moistens up the surface of the meat, then the smoke comes rolling through there and sticks to the meat because it's moist. Benefit number 2 of your water pan is it's also a chunk of water sitting there in your smoker that gets to the temp that you want your smoker to be. So therefore, it's just sitting there, hot water. It helps to maintain the internal temperature of your chamber. You're gonna have more smoke attached to your proteins, and you're gonna have a more regular chamber temp without all the spikes as the computer kicks on, kicks off, and tries to maintain and regulate temp. You're gonna have a more regular temp by using a water pan. So don't make that mistake. Don't get lazy on your water pan. Use your water pan. Mistake number 2 that you want to try to avoid is not inspecting your pit from time to time, looking for grease buildup. I have had a couple different chamber fires in my lifetime with this particular pit, and it's because I didn't inspect for grease buildup. And I wanted to talk to you about this because I have some grease buildup right now. If you'll look back here in the back of this chamber, for one reason or another, I usually have a buildup back there, and I did a whole video about how this gets out of place in that little hole right there. And this is your grease trough. This is where all of your grease runs and goes down into the grease pot that collects all your grease in the back. From time to time, don't forget about it. Inspect your unit, look for grease buildup, especially around the bottom. That's where your burn pot is, and that's where most of your heat is concentrated. And so if you have a grease buildup there, that's gonna be where your biggest risk of a fire is. If you do notice a little bit of buildup, try to figure out why that's happening, remedy it. If you cannot, just clean it up and check after the end of that cook. See if you need to clean it up again. Don't make that mistake. It'll ruin a brisket. It'll ruin something expensive that you've got. It'll ruin something that people are waiting to eat. And it'll just fill your chamber up with char and just ruin your day, man. Make sure that you don't get grease fires by checking for grease buildups. Mistake number 3 to avoid is not inspecting the quality of your pellets. What you want to do from time to time is you want to look down into your pellet hopper, get your hand in there, maybe get a handful of them, and have a look. If they are not solid and shiny, if you notice dullness or puffiness or anything like that, like these pellets right here are solid, they look great, no problems at all. But if you have been several days, weeks, maybe months without a cook in your pellet smoker, then you're going to make sure to put your eyes on those pellets, make sure they're not puffy, make sure they're not falling apart, make sure they're not dull. Also, make sure that you don't have a lot of large pellets in your chamber because that's going to block up your auger. But if you see the puffiness and dullness, what that's going to do is it is going to indicate that moisture has gotten to your pellets, and that means you probably need to come down here to the good old pellet clean out door, open that up, get those pellets out of there, get you some nice, clean, fresh pellets, and start all over, go from there, and you won't have the problems that you will get using contaminated pellets that have been exposed to moisture. That is a big mistake to avoid. Make sure that you do that. So for the mistake numero 4 that we're going to try to avoid is not cleaning out your ash pot. You need to clean out your ash pot at every single cook. Because come look right here. What you get is you get a buildup of ash, and you might notice there's some embers still in there. We just were running mine. But over the course of a longer cook, what you're gonna have is a buildup in there. And whenever you shut your pit down and it goes through the cool down process, and you turn the power off, you're like, man, why is my fan running for 15 minutes after I shut my pit down? Well, what it's doing is burning up all of those pellets and getting everything cleaned out of there so that there's nothing still left burning for a long period of time after the pit has been shut down. But what you get is that buildup. And then if you don't clean it out, at your next cook, it's going to dump pellets on top of that ash bed. And then if you don't clean it out again, it's going to dump pellets on top of that ash bed. And what happens is it's going to get built up enough to where it's going to be on fire up here where the pellets are coming directly in from your auger. And what can happen is fire can go through this hole, into the auger, through the auger, and into your pellet chamber in the back or on the side if you've got a barrel type pellet smoker. So make sure that you don't let that happen, because that's how you have to go to a store and buy yourself a new pellet smoker, because you just ruined it. So make sure that you're cleaning out your ash pot after every single cook. Mistake number 5 to avoid is you want to just, get into some foil. This was a hack that I did in the last video, and it's a mistake if you're not doing it. Make sure that you're wrapping some foil around your water pan, wrapping some foil around your grease catch tray. Cover those surfaces. That way you don't have to scrub them clean. Just take the foil off, and you don't have to worry about that nearly as much. And that's like the biggest burden with these things. It's so much fun coming and throwing some ribs or something into the smoker and enjoying that and enjoying the rewarding end product that you get if you've done it right. But then when you've got to clean this thing, it's like, oh, I'm just gonna put it off, and then you don't use it for 6 weeks. And you don't want that. You want to be eating good all the time. You don't want to go 6 weeks just because you don't want to clean it. Use foil. The foil gets dirty. Wad the foil up, throw it in the garbage, add new foil, you're ready to rock and roll. You can also use a foil pan to catch the grease drippings and things like that from your proteins that you're cooking. I don't recommend going directly underneath what you're cooking. If you can go up a shelf or put a space in between the pan. That way you've got plenty of room for smoke to circulate around up underneath your protein so that you get smoke attached to the bottom side. That's a big mistake to avoid, not using foil. It's a lesson that you're going to learn in the long run. Go ahead, learn it now, use foil. Number 7, and this is something that comes with experience. Hopefully you can learn from my experience. One of the biggest mistakes to avoid is not taking the time to make a plan. You have to make a plan. You got to know about how long does it take to cook a brisket per pound cooking at 225 degrees. And you can easily find that information out by watching some videos or Googling that information. It changes if you go from 225 to 250 to 275 to 300 to 325 and so on and so forth. Cook times change. You need to calculate that back to pick your proper start time. And don't forget about the rest. I've got a video on the rest and why it's important. You can check that out. I'll leave a link down below in the comment section. Make sure to smash the like button. What we're talking about is the need to plan and how important it is and how much of an effect it has on your cooks. If you don't plan, guess what? You're going to be sitting around 7:30. Your wife and your kids are going to be whining, staring at you, looking at you like, what's taking so long? The kids are hungry and they're starting to fight. It happens. If you did not plan properly, you did not plan your start time, you did not incorporate enough time for the food to rest, guess what? It's going to be dry. It's not going to be what it could be. You're going to be wishing you had made a plan. So avoid that mistake. Start things off with a plan. Piss poor plans produce piss poor barbecue, as my wife just said before we started this clip. But also remember, fail to plan is a plan to fail. I'm glad you stuck around because we're going to get into the bonus mistake not to make, and it's an important one. So let's talk about that right now. Okay, so thanks everybody that stuck around. This is the bonus mistake not to make. I was a poet, I didn't know it. I make a rhyme every time. Bonus mistake not to make is whenever you've got your smoker on and running and you're like, you know what, I'm gonna cook these ribs at 250 degrees. Give it a tap and you run that temperature up to 250 degrees because you've been watching American Smoke and you know that you want to get those ribs just right, but you run it up to 250 and you're feeling proud of yourself and you're like, man, these are going to be A-okay. I can't wait to impress my family. And you walk off, you go get your ribs and you put them in the smoker and you shut the door and you're like, man, yeah. Guess what? You did not click the little wheel, okay? I don't know if this is a problem on other pits, but if you click that wheel and you run that temperature up to what you want and you don't click it again, guess what? You did not set the temp. This has happened to me probably 10 times. 10 10 times. Come back down, you're like, man, I ought to be about halfway done by now. You look, chamber temp says 130 degrees. You look in there and you got this old dry, sad looking piece of meat in the smoker. It's terrible. So make sure that you remember the bonus mistake not to make, and make sure and click the knob when you set your temp. That way you set your temp. I hope y'all have enjoyed this video. Make sure to smash the like, subscribe to the channel, come over to American Smoked Carnivores on Facebook and join us. We're a growing group, lots of people sharing tips, telling jokes, whatnot, barbecue related stuff. Come on over, we'll see y'all in there. Thanks for watching, smoke on, and I'll see y'all in the next video.